Hey guys, welcome to the second video on this E46 LS swap project. Today we're going to be finishing up the exhaust system. We're going to mount the shifter, make some brackets for it, and we're going to make a custom shift linkage. Let's get into it.
We are back here down under the car at the exhaust. Now that I have the harness, I have my O2 sensor plugs. I know where the O2 sensor plugs are. They're about this long. Considering they're this long, I didn't know how long they were going to be before I got the harness. So now that I know, we can pretty much put the O2 sensors anywhere I want. I don't really want them in the header because I don't want to have any fitment issues with the transmission. I don't want them super, super close. And these headers aren't the best quality. These are China from CX Racing. They fit, they work, they're not amazing, but the collectors aren't great either. So there's probably going to be a lot of turbulence in here before the V-band. So I'd like to have the O2 sensors somewhere out here beside the transmission. So hopefully it'll be a little less turbulent. You'll get a more accurate reading with all the exhaust gas coming through and mixing in there. And since these plugs are here, we have plenty of length. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this Y pipe back up. Got our two O2 sensors, stock Denso, nothing special. They come with the wiring specialties kit, if you order them at least. And then we've got our O2 sensor bungs. Get them from Vibrant. They come with the same thread as the O2 sensor, so all you gotta do is cut a hole and weld them in. So these O2 sensors are pretty normal size. They're not huge, they're not small. And ideally, I want to have them an equal distance on both sides, so we're getting an accurate reading on bank 1 and bank 2, or an even reading rather. So I can put this one somewhere around here, but I won't be able to here because we have this flex pipe, so I'm going to have to go a little farther back. So if I go just before the flex pipe on this side and just after on that side, I should be fairly even. Now I'm going to have it sticking straight up into the chassis here. There's quite a bit of room up here, so I'm not too worried about the position that I take, but I do still want to mark it and make sure that I get it in a good spot. There's a big tab on the transmission right there that I don't really want to hit. So I'm going to do my best to just push the bottom of the O2 sensor into the pipe, see where it's square on the pipe, make sure that that's a good spot. And then I'll do my best to mark it. It's not particularly easy with the way this marker is. I think I'm going to go get some paint and put a little bit of paint on the bottom of the O2 so that I can touch it onto the pipe up there. Paint marker. And luckily this O2 sensor is flat on the bottom. There's no sensor on the bottom, so if I put a little bit of paint down there, I should be able to get enough on there that when I push it into the top of the tube, it'll transfer a little dot, and then we can see where we have to cut our hole. I have to make sure not to touch it until I'm in the right spot. Hopefully that transferred a little bit of a mark. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Try to keep it about in the same line, so just after the collector, or just after the flex pipe, somewhere there. We should have a good mark on both sides. Close up the marker, and we'll take this stuff back off and see where the marks are. Okay. We're back on the bench here. We've got the Y pipe back down. We've got our two little barely yellow marks. We're going to mark them up black just to make it a little bit more obvious where we've got to put our bungs. Now we've got the O2 sensor and the bung on it here. These things, like I said, you can buy them from Vibrant. It comes in like a pack of 5 or something like that. And basically we got to drill a hole. The hole in here has to be the same size as the OD of these threads. I'm just going to use a step drill bit. That's the easiest way to do it. The only downside is this is stainless steel. Stainless steel is very hard, really sucks to drill through, so you tend to eat up through bits pretty quickly. But we've got our center, so got a center punch. That will be enough. Definitely don't want to hit it too many times because it's going to turn that pipe into an oval instead. We'll start with a pilot bit. We're going to deburr these a little bit. Take our rag and acetone, clean everything that we're going to weld. Give our tungsten a little clean because I haven't used this in a little bit. And we'll get our filler and clean that. It's just a regular 308 filler rod, nothing special. All we're going to do is tack the two sides. We don't want to weld this on fully, just in case we put it in the wrong spot or if the angle's wrong. So we'll tack it on, put it back in, and then make sure it fits. And we're only going to tack it because stainless steel needs to be back purged. You have to put argon on the inside so it protects the back of the weld. So when we weld everything out, we'll do that. But for now, we're just going to tack it. Plugging the ground into the machine is a good idea. Thread these in loosely, go reinstall it. Make sure that it's not hitting anything. If we've got to make any adjustments, we can do that. Then I'll put a couple more tacks on the other sides, on the left and the right side here. And that'll be it. The exhaust will be pretty much ready to get welded up. So we'll go over to my friend's shop and do that. I don't have a back purging setup, so we're going to go borrow his equipment and finish weld everything. This section, there's another center section over there, and in the car there's an exhaust section that also has to get done. So all of that will get welded up. Let's go put it in. All right, we've got this installed again. Now our O2 sensor is sitting up here. Got lots of room on the left and the right side. If you look at it from this side, from the bottom, it's not touching the chassis at all. So this side's pretty good. Same thing on this side, not touching anything. Lots of room on both sides, lots of room on the chassis, and it's clear of our clutch lines, so we don't need to worry about anything touching over there. Our leads are plenty long enough, and we have some little brackets up in there to hold the wires after. We've got the whole exhaust installed, all the way from the front to the back. And what we have to do is make a little mount right in the middle. So right here, this is where the stock E46 mount would be, just for the center of the car. And I want to use the OEM rubber here and just add a small piece of metal. What we'll probably do is take something like this and just go from this bolt here over, kind of like that, and weld it straight on. This will just keep it from flopping around. It'll keep the flex pipes up here in the front from moving too much, since they do move quite a bit and it wants to droop. And the only other mount that I have on this whole exhaust system is all the way at the back on the muffler right here. So it's a good idea to have a third. Measuring from center of my stud up to the exhaust, I'm close to 2.5 inches or so. We'll cut our hole here, measure off 2.5 from the center to here, and we'll just do the same on the other side. I'll leave it a little bit long just so we can trim it down and make it perfect, but it should be about 2.5 from the center of the hole up to the pipe on both sides. That is a very dull drill bit. I am going to go sharpen this. Nice and hot. Much better. So we'll degrease this a little bit, mark out our 2.5 inches from center, and then go cut it in half. It's fairly close. Just to show that's where I want to cut it. For this piece, the left side of this line is 2.5 inches. Then I have the width of the line, and I have the other side. I'm going to cut it on the other side, so I have an extra probably 1/8 inch. Same thing with this. So we're back here at the exhaust with our pieces. I have this cardboard here. It's kind of holding up the exhaust. So when we put this mount in, we decide where we're going to weld it. This rubber is still pretty squishy. So if I push it down, it will compress. So the weight of the whole exhaust is going to push down a little bit. It's going to compress both a little bit. So this exact position is not where it's going to be when it's sitting. So it'll drop down a little bit, but we have this cardboard buffer. So hopefully it drops down a little bit, but not enough to start touching this. If it does, then we'll have to move the mounts again. We have our mount. The hole is the right size for the bracket, and it fits in there. So you can see it's a little bit longer than it needs to be. It pushed this bushing all the way out, so now this bushing is square instead of on a slight angle. Not really sure if I want to leave it like that yet. I might, honestly, not really sure. And then on the other side, we put that in. That side is pretty much the perfect length. We've got both pieces tacked in now. We're going to take it out. Over time, if there's any significant amount of weight on this, this will fatigue and eventually just break off. And well, what's the point in putting them out if it's going to break in a couple years? So we'll add this. That'll definitely help a lot. Our challenge is going to be holding this in place and not fucking it up. When you heat it up and it cools down, it'll always kind of pull towards what you welded. So we'll bend it over just a hair. It looks good. And I've still got maybe, I had 3 pieces of cardboard in there before. And I'd say I've got maybe 2 now. So dropped by about a piece of cardboard, which is perfect. And I think we're good. If it shakes a little bit, it's not going to hit. So I'm very happy with that. All right, next on the list is the shifter. So we're going to be using this Coilovers shifter. This is a non-self-centering. It has a reverse lockout if you want to use it. This particular shifter is used. Found it secondhand. It's pretty dirty. Not a big deal. The only issue is we don't have the mounting bracket. So these shifters are designed where you drill holes into the chassis, and then there's a plate that goes on the bottom of the chassis and it sandwiches the transmission tunnel, and that's how it holds it in. So we don't have that plate that goes on the bottom, so we're going to make a plate. What we're going to do is we're going to take this chunk of stainless, it's about an 1/8 inch thick. We're going to make a small rectangle, basically the same size as the holes or as the side mount. We're going to drill our 3 holes in it. We're going to tap the holes right into the stainless, and then when we put it in, we'll just have a person underneath hold this up, and then the person on top can screw the bolts in from the top, and we'll do one for each side. All right, so we've got our 2 plates made up. Everything's ready to go, threaded already. So now we're going to go inside the car and mark out some holes for this and drill them out so we can put it in, and then we can make our shifter linkage. Okay, so we're in the car here with our shifter. These Coilovers shifters are really cool. They feel great when they're in the car, when you're driving with them. The only real downside is that it's really tall. This whole section over here that controls the reverse lockout, it interferes with all the trim inside the car, and your only real option is to notch out a couple sections of trim in here. So we're not going to deal with this right now. That's when the interior goes back together, so I'm not concerned with it yet. But we do want to get it somewhere that's hopefully a little bit better. Maybe it'll be a little less noticeable so we don't have to trim it as much, but there's only really so much that we can do because you will have to trim it anyway at one point. That's where it's going to go. So take the marker. I'm just going to mark out the holes. And we'll just drill out those holes with the drill bit here. Holes are done. The only other thing that I see here that's going to be a problem is these riv nuts. These are for the automatic shifter. Also this hole over here, which we're going to cover. These riv nuts stick out on the bottom. There's a big bump underneath. And our little piece of metal that goes across here is going to hit that. So we've got to drill these riv nuts out. So I'm going to go get a much bigger drill bit. So I couldn't find anyone to help me. I am alone here. And I'm going to have to figure out how to do this on my own. Hopefully I don't drop it because I don't really want to get in and out of this car 20 times trying to get these things in the right spot. It does hold itself there pretty good, so I got high hopes. I'm feeling good. It's not bad at all. I think that's manageable. Now, this won't be the last time I install this. I do have to make some kind of a gasket or a seal in between because I don't want any exhaust or anything coming up from under there. There shouldn't be any exhaust there, but still. The heat, the sound, the noise, the everything, fumes, anything that might be there. Oil leaks because it's a BMW. So here's the underside under the shifter and the transmission and all that. This is the shifter, and this over here is the shift linkage on the transmission, and we've got to make a rod to go from here to there. Now, this is the shortest OEM rod that I could find from a BMW, and it's about double the length of what we actually need. So this is the big rubber block, helps dampen the vibrations and torque load to the drive shaft and the rear end, and it sits right here. So this is spinning at the speed of the drive shaft, and the shifter is very close. It's maybe half of an inch away from here. So that's why this one is curved. This one was curved because it went up and around to clear the guibo. In our case, we shouldn't have to worry about it because there's pretty much a straight line of clear sight above the guibo, but you never know. It's still something we have to take into consideration when we final fit and make sure everything fits properly. We've got our two little shifter pieces here. We're going to put them in position, make sure the shifter is still straight up and down in the car, in neutral basically, and then we'll weld them in. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Man, why'd that move? Gotta stay there, man. Don't move. That's a little tacky. I'm gonna put another one. We've got our baby shifter linkage here. It's welded up, painted, ready to go. So we're gonna slide it back in, put the clips. We have these little yellow plastic washers just to take up the slack on this because it's a little more narrow than the original one. And then this will be pretty much ready to go down here.
This is going to be the end of the second video. Off camera, I did do a little bit of work with the engine wiring harness, pulled it through the firewall. I also installed all the manual pedals and the clutch lines that had to go inside. Wasn't able to record this because it's a very, very awkward place to be in, and I can't really position the camera to see anything well.
Why is everything so tight down here?
If you've got any recommendations, advice, or if you want to see me do something differently, please let me know in the comments. I'm happy to read and reply to everybody. And hopefully we'll see you in the next video.